Greetings, greetings, greetings. I'm Birch, and what you're looking at here today is one of my embarrassingly neglected square foot gardening beds. And as you can tell, I've lost an awful lot of the Mel's mix that once filled this bed. By the time you get to the end of this video, you'll have a good idea of how you can take care of this same problem in your own square foot gardening plots. So with that, let's get to it. What we're looking at here is not a traditional square foot gardening bed, which is typically 6 to 8 inches of soil sitting on the ground. This bed is actually elevated, and it's about 14 or 15 inches deep when it's actually full. And elevated beds are terrific for anybody who can't bend down or doesn't want to bend down. So what I'm effectively dealing with here is just a very big container. Nonetheless, the situation is the same as it would be if it were on the ground. Now what I've lost is about 6 feet of the Mel's mix that was originally in here. And if you're not familiar with Mel's mix, square foot gardening and Mel's mix are a system popularized by Bartholomew in his book Square Foot Gardening, and I'll put links to that in the description box down below. What you're looking at along the back here, a very small amount of that is due to compaction. I found that Mel's mix doesn't really compact much at all, so bravo Bartholomew. But what we've got here is several years of decomposition. Now, one of my other favorite gardening authors, Reich, in his book Weedless Gardening, does actually explain where on earth did all the soil go. As the organic products in here decompose, some of the final products of decomposition are water and carbon dioxide. And so what has happened is that soil that was in here when it got done has either dripped out the bottom or has quite literally evaporated into thin air. And by the way, Lee's book Weedless Gardening is also an absolutely awesome book. It's not very big. I'll put a link down to that down below as well. The information that he has provided in the book Weedless Gardening, however, gave me the key to actually rehabbing the soil in one of these square foot beds that looks like this, because this is not the first time I've done that. And what you got to remember, square foot gardening uses Mel's mix, which is 1 part peat moss, 1 part compost, and 1 part vermiculite or perlite. Mel does not like perlite. It makes him sneeze, and I'd have to agree, it's ugly and expensive. Around here, vermiculite is much more common, and so that's what I've got in here. But the thing you have to realize about this, vermiculite, which is this kind of shiny stuff, if you can see it, that is a mineral, and it does not decompose. So the amount of vermiculite that was in this bed when it was new is the same now. So what we have to replace in here are peat moss and compost. And that's about it. And so what I need to do is add what I think is going to be 6 to 8 cubic feet of a mixture of 1 part peat moss and 1 part screened compost. So that's a simple solution, folks. However, actually acting upon it is kind of laborious because I have to mix in 6 cubic feet of material into what is probably already 8 cubic feet of material that's still sitting in this bed. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do here is that I'm going to dig most of this soil, or excuse me, most of the Mel's mix that's over here, over onto this other side, and that will actually give me a good place to start mixing things together. Okay, so now that I've excavated about half of this, most of the way down, I can start adding in the peat moss and compost that I'm going to use to fill this bed back up again. Okay, now that I've got 4 buckets of new product, let's mix this up. I'm going to stop digging for a second and explain the method I'm trying to use here. Basically, since I don't have a lot of room here, what I've done on this side is I excavated about half of the existing material. Now I've added 1 bucket each of compost and peat moss to this. I'm going to mix this up with that half that was still there. Then I'm going to move the remaining half back on and mix up 1 more bucket each of composted peat moss with that. And so essentially, I'm trying to mix all this stuff together in quarters. So you get 1/4 of the mix and 1/4 of the mix. And that way I can mix everything here in this fairly large bed without spilling everywhere or having to take everything out and then put it all back in again. Okay, so that quarter is done. Now for the final bit. Whoops. Well, as you might guess, the fuller something like this gets, the more difficult mixing without spilling becomes. Well, folks, there you have it. An uncomplicated, if laborious method to rehabilitating Mel's mix in any square foot garden bed. As it was, I ended up using about 5 cubic feet of material, and you'll notice it's absolutely to the top, but I already know some of this, because it is extremely fluffy right now, will sink, and it's going to be exactly where I need it to be in about a month when I can start planting in this bed. Well, that's about it, folks. It was a lot of work, but conceptually, it's very simple. Thank you very much for hanging out with me for this entire video, doing a little bit of square foot gardening and getting everything ready for the growing season. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and watch another video all the way through. Both those things help this channel grow, and I do appreciate them. So goodbye for now, and I'll see you in another video.